Okay, so today we're going to talk about virtue ethics. Now, virtue ethics is a system of ethics that is concerned with character. So, character is who you are on the inside. And the idea is that by improving your character, you can achieve happiness. Now, the virtue ethical idea around happiness is a little bit different to our normal idea, and I want to get into that. In fact, let's get into that straight away. Um, so, so there are two kinds of character, but there's one kind of happiness. So, happiness is called eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is essentially having a good spirit. That's literally what it means. Having a good spirit. So that's the literal translation. Daimon, demon, eud, good. Good spirit. That's the literal translation. But what we really mean by that is this word, flourishing. It is being the best human being you can be. Imagine like a human version of a zoo, right? When you put animals in a zoo, you want to give them an environment that is as close as possible to the one that will match their real world, and therefore they will flourish as a rhino or an elephant or whatever. The same with humans. The idea is that we want to create in ourselves the ideal kind of being for humans. We want to flourish as human beings. That means we need to encourage our virtues and discourage our vices. Our virtues, those are the good characteristics. Those are the ones that lead to eudaimonia, that lead to happiness. Whereas the vices, you guessed it, they are the bad characteristics. So they're the ones that lead to unhappiness. And fundamentally, that's it. That's the theory. Notice how different this is to other normative theories. Normative theories, remember, are they are theories of ethics, theories of rules. Normative theories tend to be a little bit like this, where we focus, for instance, on this one is deontology. We focus on duty, right? We put that in my definition color. We focus purely upon the rules that you have to obey in order to do the good thing. Or we could think about it in terms of consequentialism. Definitely haven't left myself enough space for this. So I'm going to do a little dash. That is embarrassing. Consequentialism. That's one word. I apologize. So there we focus on the outcome of the action. We give someone money, they are able to buy food, for instance. But virtue ethics is fundamentally different because it is concerned with character alone. It is concerned with who you are, not exactly what you do or anything else. In his introduction to virtue ethics, for instance, Richard Taylor says this. I won't put it up, but do have a listen. Happiness had to be the basic concern of all ethics, for if human beings had no capacity for it, and for its opposite, there would be no point in reflecting about ethics at all. The point is that for virtue ethicists, happiness is the sole aim. Now, this kind of really kicks off with Plato. Plato was an ancient Greek philosopher who you may have come across before, who gives us this analogy of the soul. He says, imagine that the soul is a little bit like a charioteer with two horses. One horse is noble and pure, that's our noble spirit. It's the one that wants us to do good things. And then the other horse is our base spirit. It is ravenous and concerned with joys of the body and power and that sort of thing. But both of these are spirits, right? Whereas the charioteer is reason. Now, Plato argued that only if all three of these things work in harmony will the chariot move. Okay, so for Plato, I'm going to put this in my important color, because I think it is really important. For Plato, harmony of spirit or of soul is everything. If reason controls the horses too much, then they won't move. If the noble spirit runs away, then the chariot will fall over. The same with the base spirit. They all need to work together in order to go along and perform the role of the chariot. In the same way, our spirits and our reason need to work in harmony in order to be truly happy. Now, this kind of idea is further developed by Aristotle. Aristotle believed that there was fundamentally a universal kind of man. You can tell from the colour that we're now moving into the main part of the tutorial. The universal man is Aristotle's concept of the ideal human. With their kind of a set list of characteristics. And he spends a lot of time working out what that list of characteristics is. What kind of thing constitutes for him human excellence, eudaimonia. Now, that list is really in many ways focused upon the social. It's focused upon fitting in. For Aristotle, being part of a group is incredibly important, and fitting in within that group is incredibly important. But you have to be excellent amongst your peers. Here's Richard Taylor again in his introduction to virtue ethics. He says, virtue was from the start associated with excellence, with what stands out as especially good. One becomes virtuous not by becoming like others, but by the very opposite. He comes to be unlike others in his ability to do exceptionally well what they are at best merely able to do. In other words, what he's saying is that to become kind of this universal excellent man, you need certain characteristics, and the main one is excellence. Now, to work out what those characteristics are, Aristotle devises a thing that he calls the golden mean. So the golden mean is his way of determining the difference between a virtue and a vice. So down here, for instance, this is the vice, you can tell that because it's got a big X in it, of deficiency. So that's lacking in a particular characteristic. On the other end of the spectrum is another vice, and this is the vice of excess, having too much of a particular characteristic. In the middle is the mean, the average, and that is the virtue. So let me give you an example. We'll go through a whole load of examples later, but let me start with a really simple one. An example might be bravery. If bravery is the middle, the deficiency on the scale might be cowardice. Whereas the vice of excess might be something like foolhardiness. I'll just write that up there. So foolhardiness is when you run into things too quickly. This is likely to get you killed. This is likely to get you shamed. This probably won't get you killed and will get you praised. And so he thinks that is the characteristic that we should be pursuing. That's the virtue, and one of those things that will lead ultimately to eudaimonia. So Aristotle looks a lot more like self-help than he does kind of the ethics that we're used to, the deontology and consequentialism. It's not about rules. It's about acquiring the kind of characteristics that will allow us to genuinely be happy.